Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:06. Roll call, please, Sandy, when you get a chance.
Yes, we have Rob Lesson, Mary Taggart, Jim Smith, Joe Liggett, Alyssa Hurd, Kenny Baptiste, and Sandy Slavin, and Agent Dave Pichette.
Thank you. Rob, did they?
I have not been reached out to yet.
Okay,
So I don't know where I stand.
all right.
I saw the letter recommending it was dated the 10th. I have a feeling it just didn't happen because they probably didn't want to do it for the Monday meeting at town meeting.
Yep.
Because it wasn't publicized, so you probably will be hearing for the 31st.
Yeah, I just, nothing showed up in the email or the regular mail or anything else. So.
Okay. All right. First of all, continued hearings and IDA for William Moots.
They're being recorded.
Yep,
Mootis. He is here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, come on up.
Hello.
Oh, we didn't think you were going to be here, so we were going to continue
Oh, really?
it. So.
Oh, okay. I'm here.
Not a problem.
That's all right.
Hmm?
That's all right.
They going down there?
They're shared though too, and Joe and I will share this one.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
David, when you're ready.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the project site is at 73 Barlow Ave in the Rose Point area, and this application was submitted as an after-the-fact filing for landscaping work in the buffer zone to a salt marsh and within a coastal flood zone. The work is within flood zone AE elevation 14. There were some landscape blocks put in within an existing concrete block wall to enhance the look of that older wall. And then there was some crushed stone added to the driveway and some loam added to a lawn area. At the last meeting, the commission continued the meeting because they wanted to get some further information about the stone wall as far as how that could be solidified, because it was just sort of dry laid in place and it was subject to storm action. It could get moved around. So we were waiting for some additional information on that. And for some other members who might want to go, who had not gotten to the site to see the particular site. So that's where we are, and take any new information from the applicant.
Sure. And actually, David, I had emailed you just about an hour or two ago copies of the certified letters that were sent to me electronically. So I've sent those to you if you need to review them. They were to the four landowners to the property. And I know last time we had talked, first of all, part of the land was on Rose Point Association's land. And I've gotten an email just kind of confirming that the association is aware of the work and knows the work and approved of the work. I think because my landscaper had been asked to stop working, he wasn't able to put the wall or assemble the wall the way it would be if it was complete. So he's going to be using pins and rebar to secure the wall because right now the wall is not, what's the word? Held together by anything.
Sure.
So.
So good. That's it?
That's it. Yeah, I mean, unless there's any other information you need or questions.
Okay,
Did you have anything, sort of a schematic showing that, or,
For the wall, you mean?
right?
Just, it would be, as it is now, it would just be with the typical pins that connect those blocks together and rebar going into the ground.
Okay, yeah, because typically we would get a detail showing that, so we have it for the record, so we know how it's supposed to be in case something doesn't get done the way it's supposed to. We can refer back to that and say,
Yeah.
this is how it should be.
Okay, I wasn't asked to bring that. I just thought we needed the information from my landscaper as to how he was going to do it.
Yeah, no, I think last meeting, it was intended for you to bring actually something that would show what was gonna be done.
Oh, okay. I can do that, although I guess that would mean another hearing. I will write down exactly what you need so I can tell him, but he had just said he would be using the pins and the rebar to secure the wall together.
How will he secure the top level?
The caps on top are
Yes.
glued. There's a special
There's
kind of
glue,
glue.
so it's
Yeah.
pins, rebar, and glue.
Yes, yeah.
Anything else?
So there was holes in the bricks then, right?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, so when you're done with this job, it's gonna look exactly the same as what we see.
Yes, the only difference is the blocks would be staggered so that the pins would be, yeah.
Okay, no other questions?
Oh, may as well keep going. Alicia?
No, I don't have any questions, thank you.
Mary?
No questions, it's okay?
Jim?
No. No, see where it's secured, yeah.
Okay, anybody from the public?
Must be along here.
We're going to continue it for the other, rest of the information.
That's the driveway.
That's up to the board's discretion. If you want to continue, you can, or if you want to approve with receipt of that information, that's up to the board.
This
I'm
must be the
comfortable
old
with
house they were
what's
talking
presented,
about.
I'm familiar with those kind of blocks.
And so that, William, have your landscaper send something down to Mr.
Sure.
Bichette for the record.
Yeah, that's fine. Do that.
I'm comfortable.
Okay, then,
Okay, what number,
Sorry.
And would be a -2 if that's the board's.
all right. I'd move to grant a -2 termination.
Close the hearing.
I'll close the hearing. Sorry,
Joe's motion, seconded by
Second.
Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, through the motion?
Make a motion to grant a -2
Second.
termination.
Joe's motion, here goes the brain again. Joe's motion, seconded by Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And is there, aside from the document that I'll send you from the landscaper, is there any other thing that I need to do beyond this? In terms of, is there like an inspection that's done at some point or anything like that?
Yes, I'll go out once, work has been completed to take a look at it.
Okay, great. All right, thanks very much, appreciate it.
Okay. Continued NOI for Gary Buckminster, Wareham Harbor Master Shellfish Department. They requested that that be withdrawn. Is anybody here for that? No? Okay,
They want to withdraw or?
they're gonna withdraw it.
And they
Okay.
withdrew it.
Make a motion to withdraw,
Second.
allow to withdraw.
Joe's motion, seconded by Alicia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. All right, it's 7:15. Yeah, we can go right into the hearing, Sandy.
Okay. Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. On Wednesday, October 18th, 2017, at 7:15 PM on the request for determination of applicability for Melissa Lima, 25 Rose Point Ave, West Wareham, Mass. 02576, to construct a deck for property located on Assessor's Map 78, Lot 3, 25 Rose Point Ave, West Wareham.
Hi. Can you identify yourself for the record, please?
Melissa Lima.
Okay. I forgot to mention that we are being recorded for television. so everybody knows. I usually do it at the beginning of the meeting, but slipped my mind. Okay,
No,
Manny Rodriguez.
okay. David's gonna highlight, and then we'll go from there.
Butter cards.
Do you have your green cards?
footings. Tree. We're gonna cut that tree down, and it's right in the middle.
Thank you.
Over the patio, over part of it. Taking down an oak tree.
Okay, the project location is at 25 Rose Point Ave, and the project involves the construction of a deck and the removal of a tree within the buffer zone to a salt marsh and within the riverfront area of the Sippacan River. A 7 by 16-foot deck is proposed on the side of the house. This work has already partially been started. Also, the applicant wishes to cut down the existing oak tree that's in the vicinity of where this deck would be constructed. That's probably a 14 to 16-inch diameter oak tree.
Big one.
The deck would be supported with 5 sonotube footings. Couple of things that I noticed at the site when I was there was it does appear that there's been some fill or loam brought into the back of the site, which was recently seeded. That's not something that we had previously approved. Also, there's some stones that have been stacked up at the edge of the marsh, sort of a low wall, if you want to consider that. Again, these items were not permitted and should be removed as they are within the 30-foot no-activity zone. So as far as the deck goes, that is being constructed within an existing retaining wall at the site. That should be fine. It's up to the commission's discretion about the removal of the oak tree that's there. It is a sizable tree, but it would partially be in the way of the proposed deck. So at this time, I would recommend a continuance of the hearing so that these other minor violations could be corrected before the commission approves
Big tree.
the project.
Oh, yes. It's a shame to lose it.
Anything you'd like to add, say, anything?
The loam that he's talking about was 10 bags of top fill that we bought at Lowe's. The area that he's talking about is a place that when we worked on a house, rebuilding the back of the house, everybody was working in that area, so there was already grass there, but was damaged by us. So I just put some top loam and reseeded. That was about it. It was already there. I just just put top soil.
I think the only issue with it is that if you had kept it at the grade, then that's one thing, but you've kind of built it up. You sort of filled it in to flatten out an area back there, and that's kind of the issue. You're really not allowed to just fill in that area back there like that.
As far as the rocks, the rock wall in the back is maybe too high in some areas. All rocks that we found in the ground when we were digging for the new posts, for the new house, for the new addition. And Melissa was like, save these because they come from,
There were some rocks there
so let's
originally.
put it all back there for now till we decide and see what we're gonna do with it. Just get it out of the way, but don't throw them away because that's all things that came from
The yard.
the yard anyway, you know.
Did that answer your question?
It answers the question. They still shouldn't be placed there. You can't build a retaining wall, even if it's not in your mind a retaining wall. You can't really put something like there on the edge of the marsh, so
I
that's,
wasn't aware of that.
right. So it just needs,
Be removed.
yes.
That's fine.
And what about the grass?
That shouldn't be there either, as far as, you can have grass there, you just can't fill it so that it's all high level. You have to get it to the original grade that was there, and then it will be fine.
It's already growing.
It started to sprout.
The new grass in question is totally maybe 12 feet from the house. If you go 12 feet this way, It's no more than 12 feet. The new, yeah, the grass is growing now, yeah.
Have you gotten there, Sandy or Joe?
Yes, but I didn't look over the wall. I viewed
Did
only-
I?
Yeah, I didn't realize there was anything to look at other than the deck that had been started.
Well, there wasn't supposed to be.
Well, yeah. So there was a row of rocks there already,
Well, there was some rocks on the edge of the tall grass.
and you just put another level on top of
There
them?
was rocks there. Right, so when we were digging, I was like, just put them down where there's already rocks. I didn't know.
What's that?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Rob?
Haven't seen it, so, no.
Jim?
Nope.
Joe?
Hey, how long have you owned this place?
We closed in March, and then we just moved in at the end of August.
Okay.
So we renovated.
I have no other questions.
Felicia?
I don't have any questions.
Mary?
No question?
Anybody from the audience? Come up and identify yourself, please.
Come up or?
Yes, come up. So you gotta speak into this microphone.
Okay. My name is, my name is Bern Budd. I live at 23 Rose Point Avenue. The cottage that Manny and Missy bought was a very unloved, very old, untended rental cottage that had been empty for 2 years when they bought it. What they have done to it is just remarkable. If they've done anything in violation, I'm sure they're willing to fix it. But as far as the tree goes, it's a very old, very mature oak tree whose roots are undermining their patio and threatening to come into our yard. And I have no solar panels and it's shading them, which I know doesn't matter, but I would love to see it come down. I've been trying to get the owner of that property to take it down for years. But we are firmly, we're really happy to have Manny and Missy as neighbors. And they've done everything right so far. They've made an old, as I say, cottage turned into a beautiful house.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
I have one more
Anybody got-
question, if I
Go ahead,
could.
Joe. Go ahead.
I don't know whether Dave or you folks, how high did you actually fill up with topsoil? How much did you build up?
I would take a
Just a guess.
real good guess, probably no more than a foot at the end. Some parts are level, and then the lot just drops.
Okay, so
And I
you try to make it even.
square, so the most you'll see is probably a foot, and then gradually comes down to less than a foot as we go up towards the house.
Would that be a big deal to
10 days
actually
is a
remove
little
that, to get it back to?
What's that?
10 days.
Or rake it,
If we have to, we have to.
or rake it out.
Not a lot, but
Or rake it out?
still in the 30-foot.
Dave, would you be able to, would you go along with that if we have them rake that out, get the level back down and more even?
Yeah, that's really the issue, is that they sort of filled the spot versus just kind of reestablishing the existing grade lawn, so.
Okay, would that work with you folks?
Sure.
I'm comfortable with just making those two stipulations between that and the rocks, having those out. I could actually make a motion to get this done with tonight, if anybody else feels the same way.
Sandy's got a question.
The tree.
The
Yeah.
tree.
I have no problem with it being removed,
I don't either.
but can you cut it to the point that it can be underneath the deck so you don't have to worry about removing the roots?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because the roots are holding the banking together.
It could stay like,
Well, just, maybe underneath the deck type thing, as opposed to trying to remove the roots, which will disturb the neighbors, disturb your yard.
Oh, it'll sprout again.
Not if it's covered over.
What?
I was just wondering, it's an oak, because I got an oak tree down in my yard and it's sprouting again.
Well, oh, they love to. They love to. So you go around and said, okay, I'm going to cut all this little saplings and, yeah.
We have one on the other side that I keep cutting.
Yeah, it's gonna continue to want to grow, but
It's alive still, you know, so it's holding everything together, the soil anyway.
But the rock wall existed already, you just piled it higher.
It was existing, yes. We have old pictures of when we first bought the house, and it was there. We just add on top of it from the soil, you know, from the lot, so.
So, Mr. Bichette, what I'm hearing is that you want the new rocks removed and the old ones stay there because they had nothing to do with it, you want all rocks removed?
I've seen nothing to indicate that there was something there previously, so I can't speak to that without seeing proof of that. So my recommendation is they all should be removed. There's not that many of them, to be honest with you, so I'd rather just see them all taken out.
The neighbor's saying, yeah, they
But
Some of
it's,
them were.
it's the 30-foot no-work zone is the issue.
Right, and the fact that you just can't stack stones and make a retaining wall without getting it,
You would be
Permitted.
very concerned about a tidal storm surge taking those stones and doing more damage to your property.
or the
should
marsh.
something come in, or the marsh. So, yes, I would like to see the loam spread out, raked out, so it doesn't show any height. Just oughta, I'm not gonna ask you to dig up the whole loam and put it in a bag and take it away. But I would support the removal of the stone wall and removal of the tree and the completion of the deck.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, give me a motion.
The question.
Oh,
I just am curious as to what you're planning to do for landscaping. Are you planning to add any more bushes, any more, anywhere on your property? Or are you
Good
just
question.
leaving it the way it is now? Since you're taking down the tree, which is a green, carbon dioxide producer, I just didn't know if you were planning to do any other landscaping on your property.
Most of the stuff all the flower beds were there.
Yeah.
Like, so just the
Oh, I'm
border
not
of the
asking to,
house.
yeah.
Those are still there. We have a lot of pots, like, up top, but nothing, there's no landscaping down there. Even the deck would just be pots.
Okay.
Movable stuff.
You don't really have too much room, it's very small.
No, I just didn't know, keeping those flower beds is a good idea, it's helpful.
Okay,
okay.
I make a motion, we close the hearing?
Sandy's motion,
Oh,
seconded.
wait a minute.
What?
Oh, no, we're continuing it, right?
No,
Mr.
we're
Bichette, we're closing?
It's up to the board if you're comfortable with it.
You wanna finish it off,
I'm
finish it
comfortable
off?
closing, and we'll come look. Okay, so my motions continue. I make a motion to close the hearing.
Second?
All right, Sandy's motion, seconded by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Opposed? It was you, Mary, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to grant to build the deck with the following stipulations that you leave the stump and root system on when you remove the tree, remove the rocks that are out in the no activity zone, rake out the loam, and get that looking nice. And where this is an after the fact, but I'm taking into consideration that you're basically a new owner of that place, so I'm gonna have to put in a $25 fine for after the fact filing.
Second motion?
Joe's motion,
Second.
seconded by Sandy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Thanks, folks.
You all set? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there more coming? Was that?
They always do that, they do that anyways.
Hold this there.
It was an after effect.
Keep on pushing me.
Missed that one.
Notice of public hearing Wednesday, October 18th, 2017, at 7:15 PM on the request for determination of applicability for Stephen Tampini, 3130 Posey Road, Fairfield, Connecticut, 06824, to install a lawn for property located at Assessor's Map 46/A, lots 1/74 to 75, 160 Pine First Drive.
Yeah. If you would identify yourself for the record.
Yeah, my name is Steve Tempini.
Thank you. David will highlight.
Mr. Smith.
I hate these new chairs.
The project location is 160 Pinehurst Drive, and this application is being filed in response to a violation that occurred at the site, which involved significant landscaping work in the buffer zone to salt marsh and within a coastal flood zone. This property has been excavated to remove the existing grass and underlying soil for about a depth of 5 or 6 inches or so in an effort to make improvements to the landscape yard by adding a fresh layer of loam to establish new lawn. When this was discovered, the project was halted and hay bales were required to be installed at the site to contain the disturbed area, which has been done. But the applicant's seeking to place approximately 4 inches of loam and then hydroseed the area. He also is looking to install an irrigation system at the site. The plan that was submitted, though, does not show any detail relative to the irrigation system, and in my opinion, should be more detailed overall. So at this point, I would recommend that the hearing be continued to get a better plan, which has detail relative to the site and the proposed irrigation system. So we have a sense of the extent of where that's going to be placed and what work is going to be needed to put that in.
Hey, Dave, could I speak?
Yes, you can speak.
Here, it's a sprinkler system.
Yeah.
And they usually put it on the 2 feet inside the border. Well, first of all, let me just say, I'm a fault here. I should have came here. I'm kind of used to coming here. But I didn't think that putting a lawn in would turn out to be that big of a deal, to be honest with you. Because I hired actually a great group that is in Wareham. They've been in business for 25 years. And they do the whole neighborhood. They do all the waterfront properties down there. I hired them to come in and I just asked them for a lawn. And they gave me a proposal back, and I said, you know, perfect. I'm a paramedic in Connecticut. I didn't have the time to come up here. So I asked them, you know, do I need to be there? And they said no, they could take care of everything. And I'm not deflecting this because they've been actually really good to work with, but I honestly didn't realize that this was going to be a huge pile of dirt in my backyard, and I think it looks a lot worse than it is, because if you spread it out, it's probably not that bad, but, and I'm just telling you, that's why I'm here. I didn't think it was going to be this.
Steve, who's the contractor?
It's D&J Enterprises.
They should know better.
But they actually, in defense of them, well, I can only say they've been great to work with. But yeah, you know, when you go to put a lawn in, you don't think about coastal conservation when you're putting a lawn in, when a local company is there, telling you, yeah, we got it. You don't even have to be here. So, and now I'm here. But I would, you know, I think a lawn is really good because it adds some really good substructure to that area. It was a lot of weeds and a lot of dirt, and I'm not changing the grade, I'm not changing anything there. I learned a little bit about this after Dave came out and stopped it, like
construction.
what the actual process was, but they take out 3 to 4 inches of of the top of the
That's where
lawn,
he's putting
and then
his
they
lawn.
put loom in, and then they hydro seed on top of that. And I guess it's a pretty common practice.
Any more?
The irrigation will be underground, right?
Well, it's just a sprinkler system, so they're gonna put
They'd
it,
have to put lines.
yeah,
Underground.
it is gonna be underground, and I'm not sure how far down they go. I think they go like 8 inches down. It's the plastic tubing that they put down, and they'll put it on the outer perimeter of my property.
And that outer perimeter of your property goes up to that existing wall.
Correct.
Between the marsh and your property, there is an existing wooden wall.
Correct.
So if they put it close to your edge of the property, you'll be watering the marsh underground.
Well, if the sprinklers are faced towards.
Well, it depends upon the
They're
wind. It really
adjustable.
just depends upon the wind.
Wind.
If the wind is
adjustable.
onshore.
Well, and it's one
Fine.
of those irrigation systems, so if it's windy out, it doesn't even
Oh,
come
it
out.
pops up and then,
Mhm.
okay.
Pops up,
It pops up, but you can adjust the
Okay.
sweep.
if you're there,
Mm.
if you're there.
There's a few
Design.
properties, the one right next to me has the same system.
They're designed for coverage, so the heads will be placed so that when they all run, everything gets wet that's supposed to. Supposedly, nothing else does.
A lot of wind.
Rob, anything else?
So we're waiting for a
Wait a minute.
sketch with the irrigation system included in it. Is that your desire?
Yes.
Is there any way that I could, I'm not trying to push this thing ahead, but is there any way that I could bring that down or actually fax it to you tomorrow? Because, if I don't get a lawn in there, I'm gonna have a mud bath, which I don't think is desirable for anybody, and my window's kinda shrinking down a little bit. I'm just throwing that out there.
Planning time is getting short.
I think the window's
Should
gone.
see some detail.
They can still, it's
I
still,
probably have
It's
another
pretty weak.
2 weeks, maybe.
Get some rye in there.
Yeah.
Kenny, may I ask a question? Or have you gone around yet?
Well, we've
You go ahead and
got a new thing going here. Go ahead.
Just when I was down there, I noticed, you got almost like a gully on each side, I guess, so all your neighbors are not flooding out each other. You know, I know them as like French drains.
Very detailed.
It's a gully between the properties.
Yeah, the water actually comes in from the street and runs down my driveway, and
But, that's you're gonna retain those features,
we're gonna keep the same grade.
okay? And you're only gonna go up 5 inches, which is almost equivalent to what you took out.
Yeah.
All right, no other questions?
Is there anything for fertilizer here? Is this gonna get
That's what I
considered new?
was, go ahead, why don't you ask the question? That was my question. As far as,
Rob?
go ahead.
Well, that was my question. We have spoken about this before, and I'm not
Do you
entirely
want me to
sure.
talk about the fertilizer? Is
yes,
that-
please, we're always concerned
Sure.
about nitrogen that close to water.
I clam and crab in that pond. I'm the last person that's gonna put anything in that pond that shouldn't be there. We're gonna do hydro seed with the organic fertilizer that's safe. It's what the town uses on all the side streets that are up against the marshes. It's called hydro seed. And you could get it with, organic fertilizer. And look, if you don't want me to even put organic fertilizer down, I won't put organic fertilizer down.
Well, I didn't know where we stood on concentrations, and I'm not familiar with what the marsh leads to, so he just suggested a pond, so is it freshwater?
No,
No.
it's the ocean.
All right.
Well, I mean, we would probably use what the DOT and all the municipalities use on
Doesn't
all the
mean
side
it's good.
streets that are up against the marshes when they do hydro seeding, unless you would want me to do something different.
David, do you have
Jim?
an idea on this?
Somebody?
Well, I think some minimal fertilizer to get it started, but then after that, this is something the board's been discussing, you know? Do you want to allow, you know, new lush lawns to be right up against the marsh? That's one of the goals you're trying not to have, so.
Could I just have, lawns are good for marshes. They add substructure, irrigation, and filtration, and photosynthesis, and that's what you want on marshes. You don't want the fertilizer.
No, you don't want the fertilizer.
But the substrate underneath the root system is fantastic for marshes.
Well, lawns typically are,
People in that area. that
lawns
are-
typically are not fantastic for marshes because they get over-fertilized and you get a lot of input from that. So typically, you'd want to have some other vegetation in the area that doesn't require constant fertilization or
Well,
fertilization over the course of time. So if you have
Yeah.
some
I agree.
more native vegetation for a certain strip before you get to the marsh, that's what's more preferable, instead of lawn right up to the marsh's edge. So again, that's something for the commission to consider.
Anybody else? No questions? No more questions?
Okay, motion to continue.
Well, wait a minute. Anybody in the audience? Okay.
Motion to continue to November 1st, I guess is our next one.
Can I just ask, we're going to November 1st for,
A detailed an outline of where your irrigation, unless you want to come up and say where it's going to be right now in front of us.
I'll do that right now.
Is that all right? Is that all right?
Not really, because
Not
that's not a
really.
with You need
not
to,
a-
you should
well,
have a
this-
plan in
this
front of
is-
you. And the
No,
plan that
that's
was
not-
even submitted is pretty sketchy to begin.
I agree with that.
But this is a notice of an, request for determination of applicability.
Right.
Yeah, there's no measurements or anything.
So you would want the,
Yeah, it's pretty sketchy.
footage on the lot and the placement of the, irrigation, the area to determine and showing the area that's been disturbed or will be replanted, because the whole area will not be replanted, will it, or just the front,
The whole lawn,
the whole lawn?
yeah.
And that's if the commission, you know, the commission can require or state that they don't want the lawn up to a certain point, if that's what you want. If you want a vegetated strip with some more native vegetation, that's up to the board too. So those are things you need to consider. If you're okay with the lawn area there, then that's fine, but I do think you need a more accurate plan to have on record.
The lawn existed to the, wall. The lawn already existed and it went to the wall. It was a shitty lawn, but
It was just like weeds and.
It was
yeah,
weeds.
Yes, yes.
Which,
it
which,
went right.
which I agree with, that was how it was.
Can't say that on TV.
oh, I can't say that on TV. It was a crappy lawn. Sorry, Alan.
Is there any way that I could bring down the sketches tomorrow, so I can, because I'm gonna just lose the window, and that's fine, I mean, I'll leave the dirt there and just do it
You
in
can
the
always,
spring,
even,
but-
even if you, winter rye will take in there, even at a later date, and then you could reseed it with something down the road. It's not-
Overseed.
Yeah, overseed it. It doesn't need, just because we're continuing to the first, doesn't mean you can't get anything
No.
going in there before the winter hits. Especially if we have weather like
So
this.
could I go ahead and seed in there, and get it done? Because right now I've got a pile of dirt in my driveway, not to mention the fire hazard and the, you know, you can't even get to my door. I can't close my gate, so it's a mess for me. So I'm just asking if I could get it done and then come back with the irrigation and show you the plan. And if not, I'm totally fine with it.
It seems like we need some discussion on a few things, and that plan would help.
Yeah, so, continue.
bring it in.
Wish of the board?
I make a motion, we continue the hearing until November 1st, pending a detailed layout of the lot and the proposed seated area. Is that what, and where the irrigation system will be placed? Is that what I'm hearing?
Sandy, did you not have at some point an idea of when fertilization or when things should be fertilized, like lawns, besides when they start? So that once it's in, that, you know, that the fertilization is done in a, you know, in a,
I'd have to review the Nantucket fertilization bylaw, because it has on it when to fertilize and when not to.
just that it's so close that if it just tells you you fertilize in October and you fertilize in April or whatever it is, it might make a difference overall if we could get people
If
to
we
do
ever
that.
get a fertilizer bylaw working on it, yeah.
Oh, all right, so I didn't realize we
I
had to
can't,
do
I
that.
can't
That's
remember,
fine.
I can't remember
Mhm.
the time frame, but it definitely was spring,
Yep, twice a year.
Bring in
twice a
fall.
year. It's
Twice a
probably
year.
spring and fall. But I can't remember
And
off
it's
the top.
also slow releasing, which is
A very
far
low
better.
nitrogen,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
slow releasing.
yeah, but I can't remember. So there's a motion.
All right, Sandy's motion,
Second.
seconded by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
So, you want, I just want to be clear, you want me to come back with the plot plan?
Get it to us hopefully as soon as you can,
With
and then,
measurements
and then,
on it.
right, and then the board will review it on the 1st.
Okay.
So you could fax it to Dave if you have it, when you have it, you don't,
Yeah,
Well,
he
we'll
doesn't
have to
even
come
have
on
to
the
be
first.
here, does he?
Yes.
In
And I
case somebody
can't
has
start
questions.
anything.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's true. I
Okay.
understand
Thank you.
that. Okay. Thank you. Next one's Sandy.
Notice of public hearing Wednesday, October 17th, 2017, at 7:15 PM on the notice of intent for Dugan Marine Realty LLC in care of GAF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Mass. 02571, to replace an existing boat ramp for property located Assessor's Map 78-3, Lot 187, 189, and 1002, Leonard Street, West Wareham.
I'm Bill Madden from GAF here on behalf of Dugan Marine Realty.
Thank you. David?
The project site is at the Wareham Boatyard, which is at 73 Leonard Street in the Rose Point area. The project involves the reconstruction of an existing boat ramp on a coastal bank, land under the ocean, salt marsh, and within a coastal flood zone. An existing 20 by 40-foot concrete boat ramp is to be replaced with a new concrete ramp in the same general footprint. The new ramp would be constructed with precast concrete panels. It's proposed to install a sheet pile cofferdam around the ramp work area. The altering of that space within the cofferdam is shown on the plan to result in the alteration of approximately 450 square feet of salt marsh. I had spoken to Mr. Madden, the engineer, about reducing the footprint of the ramp because it's not really a site that, in my opinion, needs to have a 20-foot wide boat ramp. And so I asked if there was a potential to reduce the width and thereby reduce the area of the cofferdamming. So he said that was something he was going to look into and felt that that was possible. This would, if this was done, this could reduce or eliminate the need to alter any salt marsh area. Once the cofferdam is in place, the work area would be dewatered during the lower tide so that the work could take place. A sump would be placed in the cofferdam. Water would need to be pumped to a containment area until it was free of turbidity. The existing ramp material would be pulled up and removed from the site. Crushed stone would be placed as a bed for the new ramp, and then the precast sections would be set in place. There's also a flat 20 by 20 foot approach pad to the ramp that's also proposed to be replaced. This part of the project would be just a poured concrete pad. There's also another area at the site where boats and boat trailers are being stored that are in the marsh, basically. Several years ago, we had talked to the owner about not storing items in this area, and he had removed items at that time, but obviously things are back there now, so that's an issue that, in my opinion, needs to be addressed. The Division of Marine Fisheries reviewed this project also and did submit comments with several recommendations, including a time of year restriction on the work. We did get a DEP file number with, again, a number of comments on it. So at this point, I would recommend a continuance of the hearing to hopefully get a revised plan to show the reduction in the width of the ramp to reduce the salt marsh impact, and also for the removal of the items that are currently in the marsh area.
Anything to add, Bill?
I'll just speak briefly about the existing boat ramp. The reason why we had it in there at 40 by 20 feet is that's what the Chapter 91 license permitted originally when it was originally permitted. So we wanted to preserve that footprint with this plan. But when David and I were down there yesterday and we're looking at it, it did appear to me that there is a potential to reduce the width of the ramp a little bit. I did have a discussion with my client today, and he did express the need to have something that would be at least wide enough for 2 boat trailers to be side by side. I think he maneuvers boats from trailer to trailer, and that facilitates that exercise. And it also helps him when he puts his floating docks out, where he can put a boat right next to the floating docks on the ramp and pull them into position. So he thought that if we could get it to something that he could at least get double wide down there, and we were talking about 8 feet wide per trailer, so 16-foot wide width. And I'm thinking that it would be more in the line of 17 feet to do that reduction. I know that we didn't measure it when we were out there in the field, but according to the wetland flags that we have located on the plan and the concrete that's shown there, it's pretty close to 20, but I think that we could, try to work within something that's less than that 20-foot dimension, something I think in the order of magnitude of 17 feet in width, I think would facilitate his use, give him a little bit of a cushion on the 8-foot wide boats that would be typically using the ramp, and go from there and eliminate the potential or the need to remove the 450 square feet of salt marsh. We did have a mitigation plan, excavation, stockpile, store, replace for the replacement. After looking at the material down there, it looks like it could be done. The time frame to construct is rather narrow as well, but I think that if we're able to reduce it to 17 feet and revise the plan, come back on the 1st, that would hopefully be satisfactory to the commission. So that's what we would be planning on doing. I did not see the file number from DEP today. In fact, we got a notice that it wasn't issued. So
They issued it like at 4:30 or 5:30. It was late,
yeah.
So.
And I did get the letter from Marine Fisheries today, but didn't have an opportunity to review it. What was the time of year restriction that they were looking at, Dave? Do you remember offhand? Doesn't matter, I can.
Yeah, I have it here.
I was gonna ask that question, so
I
fine.
don't see it in the folder.
They say they're recommending no work between January 15th through May 31st to protect winter flounder, tomcod spawning, and juvenile development.
Okay. So, I mean, that fits into his schedule. I think that ideally, he'd like to try to get this thing done this year. I'm not certain if that'll be the case with the need to fabricate the precast and have it delivered to the site. Everybody's pretty busy now, and I think when we did onset, it took took us 8 weeks to get the panels delivered for the boat ramp and onset when we did that, so it's unlikely that he's gonna be able to do it, but I don't want to disappoint him if he feels that he can get it done. That's pretty much it on our end.
How long will the project take?
Well, it certainly doesn't look like it should take much more than 10 days to actually execute with all the material in place, and that's being pretty generous. I think that the major issue is establishing the placement of the cofferdam and trying to keep it reasonably watertight and keep that water down. I mean, it's very shallow there anyway. The toe of the boat ramp is really right at low tide, so it doesn't seem that it's gonna present the same problems that onset had associated with it, and not that there were major problems there, but you know, it should not take much more than 10 working days, I think, to put it together. And in my mind, it should take 5, so.
And that would still give him enough time to get all his floating docks out of the water?
I imagine,
Right,
I think so, yeah. I don't know what his schedule is for that, to remove the docks, I don't know.
But no work after January 15th, is that the date I heard?
Well, yeah, I believe it's in water activity, so portions of the work that would be below the mean high tide line could not take place, and anything above, I believe,
Like the,
could take place.
like the top ramp and stuff like
The
that?
approach pad and things like that, yes.
Approach pad.
Jim? Joe?
No questions.
Alicia?
No.
Mary?
No.
Anybody in the audience?
Make a motion, we continue the hearing until 11/1, waiting for updated plans.
Second.
Sandy's motion, seconded by Alicia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Fine.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Who
Thank
stole
you.
the paperclip? You're slacking.
Hey, thanks very much.
Thank you.
You get your copy?
Notice of public hearing Wednesday, October 18th, 2017, at 7:15 PM on the notice of intent for Richard Infeasy, P.O. Box 5256, Wareham, Mass. 02571, to repair an existing seawall, and for beach nourishment for property located Assessor's Map 46A1, Lot 50, 114 Pinehurst Drive, Wareham.
Anybody here for that hearing? They requested a continuance till November 1st.
So moved.
Make that motion.
Sandy's motion, seconded by Alicia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Next hearing, Sandy?
Okey dokey.
Okey dokey.
Thank you. Notice of public hearing Wednesday, October 18th, 2017, at 7:15 PM. Notice of intent for BWC Gibbs Brook LLC in care of Blue Wave Solar, in care of Field Engineering Company, Inc., P.O. Box 1178, 11D, Industrial Drive, Mattapoisett, Mass. 02739, to construct a photovoltaic power generating facility for property located at Assessor's Map 115, Lot 1010, off Charge Pond Road, Wareham, Mass.
Yeah. Sandy, continue reading the rest of them,
Oh,
because they're all, the next 4 are all theirs.
this Gibbs Brook didn't come before us before, but, okay. I'll continue reading, the next hearing.
Just the
This is
locations.
called Pocasset River, this is the BWC Pocasset River, Assessor's Map 115, Lot 1004, off Charge Pond Road. The next hearing is the BWC Harlow Brook at Assessor's Map 113 and 115, lots 1002A, 1003,
Charge Paul.
1014A off Charge Pond Road. And the fourth hearing is for WBC Wareham River, lot, map 113, lot 1014C and 1013B, and map 15, lot 1002B off Charge Pond Road.
Okay.
This one you might wanna just have them
Huh?
go through it.
Yeah, you want them to go through first?
Yeah, those are the different,
For all four of them, I just put which one's which on the front, so you can put them in the right file.
okay,
Gibbs, Pocasset, Whittingham, and Howard.
all right, very good. Thank you.
Okay, if you could identify yourselves for the record, and you can go ahead with your presentation.
I'm Rich Riccio from Field Engineering.
Lexi Barlow, Blue Wave Solar.
Jonathan Mancini, Blue Wave Solar.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
We're here before you for 4 notices of intent for an assemblage of arrays on various parcels of land off of Charge Pond Road. I have an aerial view of the area here. We have Route 25 here, Charge Pond Road here. This is the town highway barn facility here. This is the office of Sherkran, which is one of the property owners of the property, with the notices. The 4 arrays before you are located in the location here is the Route 25B array from BWC Gibbs Brook. This is the Route 25A array, BWC Pocasset River. Charge Pond Road A is BWC Hollow Brook, and finally Charge Pond Road B is BWC Wareham River.
That's a lot.
The total megawatt output of the assembled arrays is approximately 12 megawatts. That breaks down into this array having 6, Wareham River having 1.5. This is Charge Pond 2.6 megawatts, and finally Route 25A is approximately 2 megawatts. Is the overall plan here. The site itself is will be accessed via existing gravel access road off of Charge Pond Road that is currently being used for the cranberry bog operation on site. The majority of these roads are sufficient to access the array locations as well. We are proposing improvements to this small portion of the road here within the buffer zone to 2 existing cranberry bogs, which is why we filed a notice of intent for this array. These 3 arrays will be accessed from the 18-foot wide access road around the cranberry bogs here, crossing the existing Eversource easement into this area for these 2 arrays. The arrays themselves will all be fenced and have individual boards for each.
Ridiculous.
My solar on the house is 5 kilowatts.
How many panels is that?
Route 25B.
And my
Once
daughter's gonna
again,
have 10.
is the access road, and the only buffer zone related work on this site is just to widen out the existing access drive in this location here to provide access to this site. The entire site will be fenced, as I mentioned, 7-foot high chain link fence, raised 6 inches off the bottom of the ground to allow small animal migration through the array. Currently, this site, for example, is a wooded site. which
right.
will be removing the trees within the fenced area, smoothing, no real grading is being done in this area other than to remove a couple of mounds of material that exist. The stormwater from this facility flows in this direction, from this side, and we propose the stormwater depression here to slow down the runoff and allow it to percolate into the ground. Once again, same thing up on this side as well. The ground cover of the array following construction will be, it'll be seeded with a, what they call an HBF mix. It's for hummingbirds, butterflies, and bees. It's a clover mix, low-growing clover mix to provide habitat enhancement for that. We've also, in a number of these facilities, provided habitat enhancement outside of the array by way of bird boxes and brush piles and from the cut trees. The areas outside of the fence will just be cut, the trees will be cut, the ground cover will remain intact. There's no grading or anything proposed outside the fence. Well, that'll be allowed to revegetate with like a scrub habitat. One other thing we also would be doing is proposing to put bird boxes along this perimeter here to encourage the migration of birds to the site and to use the areas.
So before you move on from that particular location, the acreage to be cut is roughly 19 to 20 acres, is that correct?
Yes, there's about 19 acres. The fence area is 18.9 acres. There's about 1.2 that's already cleared with the existing gravel roads in there. There's an additional 2 acres outside of the fence that would be, the trees would be cut, stumps and ground cover would all remain in that area there.
Now, we didn't see, they did not do a wetland delineation on this particular lot, is that correct?
That's
The
correct.
other- We have seen the other three, but this is
Yes.
first, thank you.
Right.
I was trying to match up and
Right, yeah.
wasn't matching.
There's a map wetland off property up in here. The only jurisdictional area that extends onto this parcel is, like I said, the buffer zone to these cranberry bogs right here.
So you'll maintain a strip, so this will not be seen from 25?
Correct, yes. The next parcel I'll discuss briefly is, this is the Pocasset River Route 25A array, which is in this location here. Once again, this is a wooded parcel, approximately 6 acres of land within the fence line. There's an additional acre associated with the stormwater feature here that will have to be cleared and outside the fence here and down in this area here. Just the trees will be cut, but the strictly for shading purposes. Same treatment with the fence, raised 6 inches off of the ground. Buffer zone work on this parcel is down in this portion here to existing cranberry bogs. And a small, this is the isolated wetland that we went through on the ANRAD process here. There's some work within the 50 to 100 foot buffer here for shade clearing. No panels, no structures proposed within the buffer zones on this other than a little section of the fence right here. The access of this road will be via a new gravel access drive to this point here where the just to summarize, like I mentioned, it's approximately 6 acres within the fence line. we call Charge Pond Road B, which is in this location here. And as we look at it on the aerial as well, it's this array here in an existing gravel operation. No trees are required to be cut for this. This is already been previously disturbed as part of the operations ongoing on the site. Following construction of this array, this area will be seeded and allowed to revegetate with lawn within the fence and natural vegetation outside the fence. The fence, once again, would be up 6 inches off the ground, minimal grading required for this, and the stormwater calculations show that the change from the bare sandy gravel type soil to a vegetated surface is sufficient to offset the runoff to the cranberry bogs here.
Kenny, may I ask a quick question before it goes any farther? Just going back to the 25A array.
Yep.
Is there gonna be any tree cutting there?
There is tree cutting. The existing tree line is here, like this. This side of it, this isn't wooded at this point yet. So this line, this area here will be cut.
Okay, but,
right up to this.
but the other part is already clear.
This piece right here.
Yeah, but the arrays are already, that's in a clear
No,
area.
that's wooded land, so you're gonna have roughly 8 acres of overall.
That's what I
This
wanna
is
know
wooded
is,
here. There's
Yeah.
a little piece that's not.
okay,
up in
so
here.
what is that, about 8 acres, you say?
Yeah.
Okay, and how far are you gonna go into the 50-foot no activity?
On 25B? On
Yes.
25A, no, we're not touching the 25 foot at all on
The
this.
the 50-foot.
The 50 foot, we're not touching.
I mean the
50
50
foot on
foot.
this one.
Okay, you're just butting right up against it, that's all.
Yeah, we're not.
And going back to 25B, you're going into the 50-foot for a roadway, I guess you were saying?
There's an existing roadway there that comes up into this site.
Uh-huh.
The work that we're doing to widen that is between the 50 and the 100 foot to the cranberry bogs in this area right here.
All right. Okay, thank you.
And the last array is Charge Pond A, which is this one here on the easterly side of the easement. The fenced area on this is just under 8 acres. We have the 2 isolated wetlands that were confirmed with the notice of, with the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. These are old historical cranberry bogs that have since been abandoned and overgrown. We do have some grading in the 50 to 100 foot buffer here for a stormwater feature to slow down some of this runoff before it gets to the wetland system. This was sufficient to offset the increase that you see in the rates of runoff to this due to the change from wooded to lawn area. The special feature on this one that's different than the other ones is that we are requesting some selective cutting of trees only within the 50-foot buffer to the wetland. I understand the commission has a no-touch in their rules and regulations, but we have provided a methodology for selectively cutting the trees that would shade the array within that buffer by reaching in from outside the buffer zone with a fellow buncher or a grapple, cutting the trees and lifting them out so nothing gets touched on the ground within that 50-foot buffer. In addition, we can look at offsetting any trees that do need to be cut within that buffer with replication plantings or supplemental plantings in that area if the commission desires. And the main reason for that is just to minimize the impact of shade from these trees on this portion of the array here. As I mentioned, the overall fenced area on this is about 7 and almost 8 acres. All of the arrays, we're proposing straw wattles and silt fence for the erosion controls around the limits of work. On this array here, the one that we're requesting some selective cutting, the erosion controls are still outside the 50-foot buffer. And this is the only array where there are slight encroachments into the 100-foot buffer with some panels. And that summarizes the presentation of the assemblage. Any questions?
David? Thank you for the overview. So the general comments I would make is, first of all, again, the project is for 4 separate solar arrays to be constructed, which does result in some work in the buffer zone to wetlands at these lots. The majority of all the work to be done is outside the buffer zone entirely. There are small portions of work that are within the 50-foot to the 100-foot buffer zone. The overall amount of clear cutting to be done in currently wooded areas is roughly 38 acres by my calculations, and you can correct me if that's not quite right. Again, once the solar panels are in place, the disturbed areas would be loamed and seeded. The areas would be fenced in, and that was one of my concerns, was to have the fence 6 inches off the ground at least, which they have stated they would do. As far as any clearing in the 50-foot no-activity zone, I would recommend against that, as I have on any other project that's been in front of the board, simply because that's the commission's standard in the bylaw. Also, this project is being reviewed by the town engineer, and at this point, he has not completed his review of this project. So, again, typically on these larger scale projects, the commission waits to get the town engineer's review before making a final decision in case there are any potential changes to be made. I was also going to say we don't have DEP file numbers, but we did get DEP file numbers late this afternoon. So overall, as far as the wetland regs go, I don't have a problem with the projects in terms of regulatory compliance, other than the 50-foot no-activity zone work. But I would recommend a continuance of these hearings at this point until we get the town engineer's review of these projects.
Rob?
Not yet.
Jim?
What's the life expectancy of a big system like that, once you put it in?
I can take this one. Typically, most of the contracts are for 20 years with an extension to about 30, but, you know, we've seen projects, I always like to reference the one in Beverly that went in the 70s, still operating, generating power, so.
So eventually, do you improve the technology?
Yeah, they did replace actually a couple panels on that array with some higher efficiency modules, if you'd want, but yeah, they'll degrade over time, the modules, but they'll still be generating power.
Yeah. And how long would it take you, if you get to go tomorrow, how long would it take you to put it all up?
Construction's typically 3 to 4 months.
For all that?
Yep.
Wow. Thank you.
Sure.
Sandy?
I heard 38 acres have to be clear cut. That includes the space inside of the fences and the perimeter around it to reduce the shading of it, correct?
Yes.
You agreed about the 38 acres?
Yeah. And there's some, it's 36 and a half within the fence, and probably another 4 to 5 outside the fence, when you total it all up.
And what was it outside, 4.5?
1, 2, 4, 6. 6 total.
Did I hear, when we were talking, the Wait a minute, I'll get it. The Gibbs, you were talking about laying some type or keeping some brush at one point?
Actually, on all of the arrays, the areas outside the fence would be allowed to revegetate with a shrub type layer. We'd only be cutting the trees in those areas.
No, but I thought I heard something that some of the debris from the
Oh,
trees
yes.
would be placed there.
No, I mean, that would, as part of the habitat enhancements that we proposed on a lot of these projects, we leave brush piles for animals and stuff to use. It's been done.
But it wouldn't be piled up to the 7 feet of them?
No,
just
just small, like, leftover trees and branches.
And every one of the sites will have a runoff area to collect water, to reduce the flow of the water off the sites, correct?
This site, every site has a
Something.
runoff feature, yes. This site here has, like I said, this detention basin for this portion, and there's a crushed stone drain on the side of each of the roads, which I neglected to mention during the presentation. All of these sites are relatively flat, so there's not gonna be a lot of concentrated runoff that comes off of these things. It'll hit the panel, hit the ground, and basically infiltrate into the ground. There is a slight increase in these A-type soils in the rate of runoff when you go from woods to lawn, and that is offset by the detention areas that are placed in certain, in the low spots on these arrays where they're needed.
You don't expect direct water runoff into any of the bogs?
No, because on the northern side here,
Mm-hmm.
it's this one here. Once again, this will all be vegetated. This will run off. There's a crushed stone drain that's going to intercept all that water, and put the water back into the sandy soils beneath the ground.
And your ground cover is going to be a clover,
That's what we've been putting on all of the majority of these sites.
and it doesn't need to be cut?
Correct.
It will stay low growing,
Yes,
and the bumblebees will like it?
that's what I'm told.
And the deer, if they can get through the
And
fence.
the deer, that's a little 6 inches. is a-
6 inches, deers can't
We've
go
seen them jump
anywhere.
in.
Oh, yeah.
it's- Jump to 7,
Yeah.
yeah.
They'd do limbo.
I'm sure I'll have more later, but right now I'm done.
No questions, just a statement that I'm a stickler for that 50-foot.
Okay.
I don't move on that.
It's understood.
Alicia?
I'm going back to the trees and Route 25, and you said this will not be seen from Route 25, winter, summer, spring, fall?
That's the intent, yes, and if there's any visibility, we're gonna talk about that with the zoning board of appeals as well. We've done screening plantings if necessary in the past, and they have no issue with doing that in the future on any properties if there's a visibility concern. The good thing about these parcels is, other than the slight potential for view of the array from 25, you're not gonna see these things from any other sensitive receptors around the perimeter of the site. The closest panel to a residence is probably this one here to the residences across Charge Pond Road. This is over 800 or 900 feet of wooded and the pond that they'd have to see through to see those ones. This one down here, we are retaining at least a good 100 foot of vegetation between the roadway itself and the limit of work. And then this area here will be allowed to revegetate as well, up to 10 to 12 feet high in vegetation, which would also screen the visibility of the array.
Thank you.
Mary?
Question about the power that this will generate. Where's all this power going?
The power itself, there's an existing feeder line within this easement here, and this will all into that, and it goes to the substation, which is up just off the screen here. And you guys might be able to explain a little bit more about where that goes. And
Did
what
that answer your
does.
question, or do you mean who's gonna buy it?
What is it gonna generate?
Yes. It'll generate electricity that'll go onto Eversource's grid. That'll be purchased by off-takers, to be determined.
How many total solar panels will there be in the 4 areas?
It's approximately 33,000.
Can I ask one more question?
Okay.
Have you ever, with something this large, done something where you've done plantings to sort of offset the fact that you know, almost like donation plantings maybe with the town where they might they might want to have some plantings done, and that you would come in because you've cut so much of the vegetation and do some donation of plantings for the town? Have you ever done that? I mean,
I can't say that we have done in the past, but I think we would be open to it.
Does the town have a fund established to be able to accept funds to deploy and plant on the town's, with the town's own
no,
labor?
I don't know how it, do you know, Sandy?
I don't know of one. I'm sorry, I don't know of one.
Yeah.
I,
don't,
think we
but-
can do that.
no, but
But I,
what type of trees are cutting down? All white pine,
It's mostly pitch pine, and
pitch pine?
it's not a,
Would,
we have
it's the whole idea of it, you know?
cutting so many trees.
Yeah, so much.
Yeah, it's actually not a lot of white pines,
Carbon
mostly pitch
dioxide out of
pine. There's
here.
some oaks and some red maple saplings. A lot of the understories, huckleberry and bayberry. There's not a lot of young white pine in the area, in this area.
It sounds like this area must have been cleared not too long ago,
At one point,
Within the last
I believe it was.
50 to 70 years.
There's not a lot of real big, wide trees that I can see. I don't know if when you were out there, there's not like a lot of real big,
you know-
mature trees.
No, it was pretty consistent in terms of what the nature of the vegetation was. So, yeah, there was not a lot of big white pines.
A lot of briars.
Yeah, that's for
Bittersweet.
sure.
What we have done in the past is we've proposed supplemental plantings within those shrub areas of really high-quality habitat-producing trees that could offset some of the tree cutting as well. And, I mean, we can talk with, the landscape architect there and Tom Benjamin on some of these areas. And maybe, that could be something that we could look at as well.
Great, thank you.
Want hostas planted,
No, I don't want hostas.
feed the deer?
Well, we
Yeah,
already
the deer
have-
would love hostas, yes.
We
Huh?
already have the clover.
Yeah, well,
Deer, you don't need
we may ask the
hostas,
clover to
too.
go outside the fence, too.
Rabbits
I know.
like clover.
I'm sorry. What's the next
Okay,
step?
nobody else? Anybody in the audience? No? Okay.
Wow. I was at planning and all, and so this is the first time I've seen anything that talked about the actual plans and, yeah.
Take a motion to continue this till November 1st?
It's November,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we're gonna be working with the town engineer in the next week
Zone-
or so.
when are
The
yours?
zoning board's on November 8th, so we're gonna have all of our, questions answered with Mr. Rowley, in advance of that meeting, so I would,
Will November 1st be good for you?
yes, we.
I make a motion, we continue the hearing until November 1st?
For all 4 hearings.
For
All four, sorry, for all 4, let's see, Wareham, Gibbs, Harlow, and
Pocasset.
Pocasset. I thought I wouldn't remember them.
Sandy's motion,
Second.
seconded by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye. George,
Against,
I know, it'd be
abstentions?
easier.
Thank you.
George on A and B.
All right,
and
thank you.
25
Thank you very
A and
much.
B. It's a lot of trees.
Doing a presentation or something?
That Church Pond B is the only one, and they're not doing any cutting.
You wanna do that next?
That's the one that actually entered in by.
Okay,
This is an attempt to,
we're gonna go for a discussion for Stephen King, 12 Ripple Road. Ripple Road? Okay.
I do have a little bit of a presentation for you as well. And we can decide whether or not we want to do this now or I'm willing to come back. I stand before you embarrassed. I am here not because I did something wrong, but I am still negligent. I was supposed to supervise. I can go into the details if you want.
Let me start with it.
Yeah, can you let David, can you just identify yourself, have a seat, and David will start the ball rolling here.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead,
David's
David.
name.
You- Just identify yourself for the,
Oh, my name is Stephen King, and not to be confused with the author.
okay,
I don't write books.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, this issue is relative to some work that was done at 12 Ripple Road in the RLDS campgrounds in Onset that involves some tree cutting work in the buffer zone to salt marsh and also within the 30-foot no activity zone that obviously we did not approve. So that's why Mr. King is here tonight to discuss what went on and for the commission to determine what will happen next. Mr. King has submitted a RDA that we will have on our agenda for the next meeting on the 1st regarding some of this work and some other remediation work that he would like to do. So he is here to discuss what happened at the site at my request.
Yes, and I would also like to point out, David has been to my property several times. I've invited him, and he's been very congenial and very courteous and come out and made recommendations for us. That's another reason why I'm embarrassed. With all of the support I got from him, this still happened. As soon as I found out what happened, I called David to let him know that the mistakes were made. In all, 6 trees were cut down. And to make things even worse for me, they weren't on my property. I wasn't going to do this work for another year. But I'm married, I have a wife, and she likes to see things get done a little quicker. I wanted to have all the blueprints and all the plans done, and she decided she was going to help me out. I had a hip replacement not too long ago, and wasn't capable of doing the work. So we ended up hiring a relative that worked for an arborist, was supposed to know what he was doing. And I assumed that she had gone over what was to be done with him, and she assumed I was going to stay around and instruct him. But this relative is 2 daughters that are my grandnieces, and I went to the beach with them so we could, find periwinkles and crabs and stuff, which is not too far from my house. But nobody was there supervising, and when I got back, I discovered with a great deal of embarrassment that not only was the wrong work done, it wasn't even done on the right property. So I've got to replace the trees, no problem with that. And the other thing is do I replace them with the same trees, or do we try to do something a little bit more up to date with managing the forest area and along the salt marsh? I've done a little research on that, and I've got some things to show you. In the meantime, let me give you a plan to show you where this took place.
Oh, sure.
The 2 areas represent
I'll go,
solar panels. There's nothing to do about
It's his property? And where were the trees cut? Is this one? Or over here? Who owns that?
RLDS.
You can see,
Well, this whole
there's
thing
two
is
black arrows.
RLDS.
Black arrows showing the edges of the property.
You probably don't need to fire that up yet.
No, don't you think? Okay. No. So I do have these documents as well with, I just need to leave with a
Does
few.
Dave have any pictures?
I don't have pictures. I didn't get down.
This has some in it that you can look at right now. And I've taken some photos of it as well.
It's an awful lot of paperwork here.
Yeah, well, there would have been more to it.
No, thank you.
What I tried to do is take pictures showing what I intended to do. And what I intended to do was try to remove some of the invasive species.
Well, we're here for not what you intended to do, but what actually got done.
Exactly.
Let's not get confused and
Right.
go too far off the ranch here.
Yeah, no, what I'm trying to do is show you that I had good intentions, the best intentions.
We don't care about the intentions, we
Okay.
care about this.
Easy, Joe. Easy.
In those pictures, you'll see where the trees are cut. I think
That's
the
what
largest
we're here
diameter
to talk
tree was about 4 inches.
So at this stage, as I said, Mr. King has submitted this RDA. He has stated he will replant trees where trees were cut. And so that, I think, is what I would have recommended, that some trees be replaced for those that were cut down. There were a couple of red cedars, possibly 3, and then there was some oaks that, again, were maybe 4 or 5 inches in diameter. So with replacing those trees and obviously removing what had been cut, I think that would be what my recommendation is going to be. And then his request, which we can listen to next week, he has maybe some other things that he would also like to propose as far as additional plantings.
Yes, there's an erosion concern on the bank that some of the pictures show. As a matter of fact, it shows a galvanized tub that's buried into the edge of the embankment, and the erosion is revealing the galvanized tub in some of those pictures. And then there's a bunch of junipers planted on the top of the slope, and they've grown very aggressively, but underneath them, there is no plant cover, and that soil is eroding. And I wanted to talk to people about replacing those junipers and putting like a salt-tolerant grass. And there's some pictures of that in that grouping of things that I gave you. And again, today all we're talking about is the fact that this damage was done, and ultimately I'm responsible. And then I would like an opportunity to come back later on and present this properly to you.
Well, that would probably be the best bet.
So if, between now and the next meeting, if there's members that would want to go out to take a look, then that would be advisable. And if there's any other action that the commission is seeking at this point, we can discuss it, other than the fact that, as I said, he has submitted an application, and we will have this officially in front of us on the 1st. So that's where things stand, again, unless the commission has any other things that they would want to see happen at this point.
Whose land was number 10?
No, it's not a site to build on. It's this area right here that the trees got cut on.
Who owns it?
The church owns all the land.
Well, that's right, too. You're tenant.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
not own-
actually one of the ministers too.
you're not,
which is
you don't
another-
own the land, the church does. Okay,
correct.
I forgot, thank you.
So even to get trees cut on this lot, we have to approach our board of trustees and talk to them about whether or not we can have trees cut on the property, and then there's an approval process that goes through. There was one that took place early in the spring, but not for that. And, unfortunately, that happened.
How far is this from the Cook property?
Not
My
far.
book is right here.
I know the area.
Here's the tabernacle.
Yep, see, there's his porch.
Yep.
Yeah, over the line.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the one that won't show back
He's the
up
one that
here?
won't show. Come back to us.
Well, he's around now. In December, he's taken off to, he's been sailing around the world. And when there's a monsoon season, he stops and comes back, and then he's.
It's not on this
Yes,
one.
he totally overbuilt what was
Section.
approved.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so will you be back to November 1st?
Would love to come back.
Yeah.
Redeem myself.
Yeah, that way there, your paperwork and everything, and your
What happened to the sections of the trees that were taken down? Were they removed from the area?
No, there, as a matter of fact, if you went to the property now, you
You'd
would see
see
that
them.
they're still laying down there.
Okay.
You know, one of the other things too is, when the young man was there, he was gonna cut through the pruning for me. He had a saw that was about this long, with a handle on it. So I'm thinking, okay, geez, no chainsaw, we're gonna be fine. And I thought my wife had told him when to do, but she thought I was going to, what to do, and I was gonna stay there and supervise.
Were they being trimmed for a vista?
You know, as a matter of fact, the stuff that was cut down, had nothing to do with the vista. As a matter of fact, it killed some of our privacy.
Ah,
And, that's another reason why I'm more than willing to replace them.
That's all right.
I'm trying to help you out.
I'm gonna
You
hang
got
on to
something to
this
work
for
with,
the
sure.
next meeting,
That's fine.
because we're gonna go visit the site if you don't mind.
No, not at all, please come.
Hey,
That's just one full shot.
Yeah.
So you don't need to make any motions or anything, it's okay that I'm coming back?
You're coming back.
yeah, you're all set with us for now.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
look on the bright side, it wasn't your hip surgeon.
Is Bill here for the
Get on ladders and
Stonebridge?
stuff, but,
Is he still here for that?
I don't think so.
Are they
We can,
doing that?
he's involved with that, yeah, so we can ask, we can bring that up just quickly. I had a brief thing to say about
People
that.
make mistakes. Okay, and what else is he involved in?
Yes.
And then- Well, he's here for
We
these
have
two
certification of-
certificate of compliances.
Oh, okay.
Don't forget your thumb drive.
oh yeah, I would.
20 years, nobody else.
I do have another request, I filled out a bunch of these,
Hey,
and there were, can I
Yeah,
take a
take
couple back?
take those,
Take
yeah, I
those.
have
Need
the
at
other
least
ones.
3 of them back.
You got 3 here.
Okay, thank you.
Ready to go to Canada?
Do I need to bring more for the next meeting?
No, I have the ones you
Kenny,
already made.
quick question before he leaves. Well, that's actually in a church property. Would he need something from that director saying that he's got permission to do what he wants to do when he comes back to First?
I broke the.
I actually already have that.
Do you? All right.
Yeah, it's just,
Make sure you have it with you, just in case,
Yeah.
just in case.
except what was done, I didn't get permission for.
No, we understand.
Okay,
But you got permission for what you wanted done.
yeah. I just gotta repair it now. And again, it didn't improve the vista, but what it did do is detrimentally affect our privacy. So, no problem putting it back.
Would you like the rubber band?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay, Bill, I know you're here for the 2 certificates. Are you involved in, do you want to discuss the Stonebridge drainage thing? Are you involved in that?
Well, our office is, and, you know, if you'd like me to discuss it with you, I think that, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
I just had
Is that
that,
yours on the ground?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, if you want to come on up.
I just had that on the agenda just to give the board sort of a quick update. I wasn't necessarily expecting to have a discussion about it tonight, because what I was going to let the board know was that Mr. Madden, Dave Menard from Municipal Maintenance are going to be meeting to discuss this issue and try to come up with some modifications to correct some of the issues that are a problem with what's there now. So that should take place before our next meeting, and I just wanted to make the board aware of that. I didn't know Bill was even going to still be here, but he is, so.
So there are a few things that I suggested that the fellow who's running the project in my office evaluate, and one of the things is to check out what's, all the inputs into the drainage system and make sure that they're consistent with what everyone was told was gonna be put in the drainage system. So we have just some off-site flows, we have our catch basins that are part of the overall drainage improvements. And I think one of the things that really happened here is that, to the benefit, there were 4 outfalls that were located throughout Onset that were all consolidated to this one infiltration BMP, and then that infiltration BMP overflowed out into the East River, I guess, but I think that the desire was to have a little bit more infiltration going on in there, and we don't know whether there's a little bit more flow in the form of a surge coming in there that's causing, those chambers to fill up as quickly as they do, and we don't get long-term infiltration. We just get a short slug of it, honestly, I need to look at the inspection reports from construction, some of the photographs that were taken from that first event that took place out there. It was pretty clear to me that something took place there that wasn't consistent with the drawings, and that's one thing that I wanted to get my arms around. So I talked to Dave Menard, I talked to Bob Rogers in the office, and we are in the process of getting a meeting together to analyze all those inputs. And I think that there's gonna be a little, I have an idea in my mind as to what we might wanna do down below at the toe of the stone wall. Maybe we'll have to create some type of berm down in there to more or less retain more flow at the base and try to prevent it from channelizing and flowing out across the beach and into East River. So, those are the things that we're looking into.
Do you have any idea how much water gets pumped up from the mobile home park?
I don't have any idea how much it is. That's one of our concerns.
Because I was wondering if the overflow at the river coincides with the pump out from the mobile home park.
Yeah, we know what they told us that what they were gonna put into the system. I don't know how many cycles a minute or how many cycles an hour it has in there. And, those are the types of questions that are of some concern to us right now.
Do they actually have any retention down there before they pump out?
I don't think there's that much. That's one of the...
I was down there during a couple of the storms there, and my gathering is that basically it seems like the overflow is happening when they are pumping up. It's not a steady flow.
Right.
And I think a major event like that, their retention gets filled up and they're pumping out the same time that we're clearing the roads, and it's just way too much. I don't think it was designed for that, really, to tell you the truth.
No, we had a number that, when they told us what they were gonna discharge from the mobile home park, the collection system in the street was upgraded to accommodate that additional flow. But, I just don't know if that's happening, 20 times an hour, 10 times an hour, or
continuous.
So that's one of the things that we need to get our arms around and sort out. Not certain that that's the primary source of the problem, but it is something that we didn't really have a lot of control over that we need to have a better understanding of.
Anybody else? Okay, all right. Thank you for that,
Thank
Bill.
Yeah, okay. I was here for the certificates.
Yeah, you can
You want me to
stay.
hang around?
If you want to, I'm gonna do them next. Michael Connors, 13 Salt Creek Road, certificate of compliance. David? Is it okay?
Yeah. So this project was for the construction of a pier ramp and float system at 13 Salt Creek Road. The project has been completed. There were a couple of minor changes in terms of the floats that were put in. The overall square footage ended up being a little bit less than what we had approved. And they only put 2 piles in to stabilize the floats instead of 4, which was shown on the original plan. We had required float stops on that project, and I was curious how that was gonna be held since they only put 2 piles in, but I see they have sort of a chain system that they installed, which I guess the weight is all supported on just those 2 pilings?
Yes.
Okay. So they did put a different form of a float stop in. So overall, the project is completed, and I would recommend the issuance of the certificate of compliance.
So moved.
Sandy's motion, seconded
Second?
by who? Louisa? Oh, Mary.
No, Joe did.
Oh, Mary's raising her hand, Joe's saying, pointing that way.
Whatever's
so.
quickest.
Seconded by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay. John Bennett, 22 Angelo Avenue. Certificate of compliance.
This project was also for a pier construction at the site, which is in the Hamilton Beach area. The project has been completed according to the order of conditions, so I'd recommend the certificate of compliance for that project as well.
So moved.
Sandy's motion,
Second?
Mary's second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thank you.
That was a big barge.
Well, I'll tell you.
That was pretty cool.
That was the biggest barge I've
Those
seen.
of you that had an opportunity to see, just as a side note, that was the absolute best constructed pier that I have ever worked on, including the work in the marinas.
I got a good picture for,
You know,
to the, if you want me to drop one off.
They did an exceptional job down there. Didn't come cheap, but it was, Mr. Bennett was very satisfied. He's a tough guy to make happy. But they did an excellent job. I mean, that's a really good example of just of the way high quality work gets done. So AGM was the contractor. They did a good job. So anyway, that's it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Have a good night.
You.
Okay, Colonial Gas, we have 3 locations.
Yeah, these are several projects where Colonial Gas installed new gas main a number of years ago, and they never got to get the certificate of, or never applied to get the certificate of compliances. They're trying to clean up some of their old files. So these projects have all been completed according to the orders. One of them was from the intersection of 58 and 28 to Deacon's Cranberry Company. So that was a stretch along Route 58. Another one was along Galt Road. There was a project along Galt Road, and that was project number 934. First one I mentioned was for the DEP file number 1045. And the third one was for a gas main installation along Avenue A in Oakdale. So again, all of these have been completed, and I would recommend certificate of compliances for all of these projects.
So moved in all three?
Second?
Sandy's motion, seconded by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Thank you. No?
I would like to make a motion to close at 8:55.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion, well, close, adjourn. I would like a motion to adjourn.
You mean motion to bye-bye?
Aye.
Sandy's motion,
Second?
seconded by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. You can shut it down now.